As if being a Boston sports fan wasn't good enough, the Celtics nearly won an NBA championship. And I realize nearly doesn't quite do it for Boston sports fans who are spoiled with all the banners year after year after year. But you have to admit, this one was particularly surprising and impressive, I must say. And it got me thinking that you can look at the Celtics' success and compare it to successful investing. The number one reason why is patience, especially in a year like 2022, where we've had a challenging time in the markets. If you looked at the Celtics early on in the season, and I went to several games, and I and the other Celtics fans said, this just isn't our year. Maybe we'll get to the playoffs, have a little bit of success, but it ultimately became something that required patience. And to the credit of the front office and the coaching staff and the players on the court, they didn't give up. They kept that level of patience, and they ultimately had that level of success. And maybe you made investment changes earlier this year or late last year, and you may be looking at your portfolio and say, geez, you haven't had the level of success that you were aspiring to, but that doesn't mean you go out and you change or give up on the strategy. I mean, imagine if the Celtics decided to give up on the combination of Brown and Tatum halfway through the year just because they were struggling. They would have missed all that success the second half of the year. So if you have an investment strategy, chances are you have it for a reason. Just because we have a market cycle that proves challenging on your portfolio doesn't mean you just give up on it. The second thing I look at is defense. The Celtics got to the NBA Finals in part because of fantastic defense, and defense wins championships. Defense is also important when it comes to financial planning and investing. For many investment portfolios, it's important to have an element of protection. And maybe you didn't need that element of protection in parts of 2020 or 2021, but a lot of people were glad they had it in 2022. And the same thing goes with basketball. When your offense is firing, and let's say Brown and Tatum are on fire, maybe for moments in the game, you don't need defense. But when they have foul trouble or when they're struggling shooting, that defense becomes very important. And it's the same thing with investing and having that element of protection during a challenging market cycle. And it's not just about investing. Having the right life insurance, disability insurance, estate plan, will, healthcare proxy, things that are necessary when times get rough. It's important in basketball. It's important when it comes to investing. The last thing I want to point to is diversification. The idea of diversification in investing is having positions that may perform well during different times. You may have owned something like a market neutral fund or a short duration bond fund, and frankly, during the market boom, it didn't really do much for you. But its time to shine was in 2022. And I think about a player like Al Horford. During the season, he didn't really do anything that wowed Celtics fans. But anybody that watched the playoffs was quick to realize we may have not even made the conference finals without him. He was so vital, and he saved his best performances till the playoffs. And you can look at him and also compare him to like commodities. Broadly speaking, commodities underperformed the market for many years until we had inflation. Some of the positions that you have in your portfolio for diversification purposes, they may have not had their day in the sun quite yet, but that doesn't mean you get rid of them. Imagine if we got rid of Al Horford halfway through the season. It's important that every investment position serves a purpose in the portfolio, but it may not necessarily be outperforming today. There's moments in the season and in the playoffs where Marcus Smart struggled. As we talked about, Al Horford wasn't wowing fans, but they have their moments. And ultimately, they all had a time during the NBA playoffs where we wouldn't have won a game without their contributions. And I think about Derek White and I think about Peyton Pritchard. It's the same thing with an investment portfolio. There may be positions you have that are underperforming in 2022, but they may serve a wider, longer term purpose. And it's important that they're in the investment portfolio. So ultimately, watching the Celtics have success, it did get me thinking that there's a lot you can compare it to from an investment perspective. And I will tell you, I was thinking about doing this video during the playoff run, and I was hoping for an NBA championship, not only for getting to go to the parade in Boston, but also for the fact that it just would have made this video sound a little bit cooler because we're talking about an almost championship. But the point is, you can look at their success in the playoffs and towards the end of the season, and you could use that to become a successful investor, especially in a time like 2022 that's proved to be a bit challenging. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned something, and have a great rest of your summer.